Discover the incredible moment a cop slaps a black man unbeknownst as the chief judge. Marcus gripped the steering wheel of his old sedan, heart pounding. It was just another night, another fare for the rideshare service he had reluctantly turned to after losing his factory job. The streets were empty, dark, and the headlights illuminated patches of asphalt that seemed to glimmer with his hopes and fears. As he drove, thoughts of his two children, Mia and Jordan, flooded his mind, reminding him that he had to provide, to be strong. Even when the world felt heavy on his shoulders, he pulled up to a corner, and suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Officer Stevens, his silhouette sharp against the streetlights. Marcus recognized him immediately. The town's police department had been mired in controversy, and Stevens didn't help the situation. With a reputation for having a chip on his shoulder, the officer added tension to an already fraught relationship between the community and law enforcement. Marcus took a deep breath, reminding himself that tonight wasn't about confrontation. It was about getting by. "Hey, I'm going to need to see your ID," Stevens barked without even introducing himself. "Sure thing, officer," Marcus replied, his palms sweating as he reached for his wallet. But as he fumbled, a knee-jerk reaction swelled in Stevens. The officer's frustration exploded into action. He slapped Marcus across the face. The shock rang through the air, a moment frozen in time. Unbeknownst to Stevens, Marcus was not just any man. He was the town's chief judge, a title he held quietly, hidden beneath layers of pride and humility. The slap cut deeper than flesh. It struck at the very core of who he was as a father, as a man, as a member of a community longing for justice. Gasps echoed around them as neighbors who had been watching stepped closer, bewildered by the scene unfolding before them. Marcus's heart raced, a storm of anger and indignation rising within him. This was more than just about him, it was about the whole town, the injustices simmering just beneath the surface. His children were waiting at home, and everything he believed about strength and dignity was being challenged in this single, horrific moment. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the word spread across town like wildfire, murmurs rose from the neighbors. "Did you see that? How could he?" They gathered not to pass judgment, but to support a man who had quietly shared his life, his struggles, and victories with them. Family values dictated their responses, and without thinking, they started rallying around Marcus, sparking heated discussions on both sides of an invisible line. Tension filled the town as Marcus wrestled with his decision. Should he seek retaliation, or could he rise above it, his children watching with innocent eyes? The weight of his role as a father clashed with his desire for justice. The community began to converge at the town hall, an eager anticipation gnawing at everyone's conscience. Everyone gathered there had their own opinions, but deep down, they all longed for clarity amid the chaos. As Marcus stood on the precipice of this moral storm, he felt the stirrings of hope. Somewhere within the darkness, a brighter path awaited. Would he choose the light of forgiveness, or let anger govern his heart? The choice hung heavy in the air, a question lingering for all to ponder, as the world seemed to breathlessly wait for the resolution. The crowd buzzed with energy, each person exchanging glances, their murmured questions hanging in the night air like mist. Marcus could feel their eyes on him, curious, sympathetic, and eager for guidance. He stood at the center of it all, the weight of the slap still hot on his skin, burning into him like a brand. This wasn't just a matter of personal dignity. It was a wake-up call for a community that had already been through too much. "Marcus," a voice called out from the throng. It was Davina, his neighbor from 2 doors down, a spirited woman with a fierce love for her children and an unyielding sense of justice. "What are you going to do about it?" "This isn't right." Her words cut through the thick atmosphere, igniting something within him. What was he going to do? He could feel the storm within him brewing, each pulse of his heart echoing the demands of the crowd. They looked to him, not just as their chief judge, but as a symbol of resilience against the injustices so deeply rooted in their town. "Listen," he began, his voice trembling slightly as he faced the gathered residents. "This isn't just about me. Every one of us has faced a moment when we felt disrespected or unheard. This is our chance to make our voices strong, to demand change." The crowd nodded, their expressions shifting from confusion to solidarity. A few murmured assent, voices rising to match the swelling courage in Marcus. "Let us stand together, show Stevens and anyone in power that we will not be intimidated. We deserve respect, we demand accountability." His heart pounded as the words poured out, each one fueled by the pain of that slap, his children's future, and the dreams of justice for a community often silenced. If we remain quiet, nothing changes. We can't let fear dictate how we respond. A wave of energy passed through the crowd. They were standing there, worried and weary, but they were ready. Together, they were a force, a heartbeat that thumped to the rhythm of hope and anger. Still, deep down, Marcus questioned his own resolve. Was he truly prepared to confront not just Officer Stevens, but the systemic issues rotting away at the foundation of their lives? Just as doubt slipped in, he heard Mia's voice in his head, her laughter, her innocence. His heart twisted. How could he let her grow up in a world where such injustices were tolerated? Soon, the silent resolve turned into passionate chants. "Justice! Justice!" they cried out, voices rising, echoing through the vacant streets. Each shout seemed to drive the fear back toward the darkness, inch by inch, that had embedded itself in their lives for far too long. As they made their way to the town hall, the energy was palpable. Hope surged and mingled with fear, yet there was no turning back now. They wouldn't just stand for Marcus, they would stand for every person who had ever felt powerless. But as he approached the old, crumbling building, a shadow loomed large just outside its doors. Officer Stevens stood there, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. Marcus felt a deep breath hitch in his chest. The moment of truth had arrived. Would they call out for his injustice, or risk their own safety? In that heartbeat, Marcus realized the choice was no longer his alone. It encompassed the spirit of everyone behind him, amplifying his own strength and resolve. As he stepped forward, determined to face the man who had struck him, he questioned whether this confrontation would lead to justice or ignite a larger storm. Marcus inhaled sharply, his gaze locked on Officer Stevens. In that tense silence, the collective breath of the crowd hung in the air like a tightrope strung between fear and courage. The streetlights flickered, casting a sharp, cold light on the tension that sparked between them. "Get out of our way, Stevens," Davina called out from behind him, her voice steady and empowered. "You don't own this town anymore." It was a rallying cry, echoing through the night, and Marcus felt that energy wash over him. With each moment, clarity settled in his mind. They wouldn't back down. He wouldn't back down. This was about more than just that slap. It was about their dignity, their right to be heard. How long had they let fear dictate their lives? Generations had lived under a shadow, and now it was time to bring it into the light. "Why are you here, Judge?" Stevens sneered, the contempt in his voice cutting through the crowd like a shard of glass. "You know this is a lost cause." Marcus clenched his fists, feeling the heat build up inside him. "No, it's not," he yelled, voice breaking free. "It's a new beginning for all of us. We are not your pawns. We are a community fed up with being invisible." The crowd erupted with cheers, their voices uniting, echoing like thunder. The pressure around them seemed to dissipate, replaced by a wave of hope that surged with every cheer and chant. Stevens shifted, eyebrows knitting together. "And what do you plan to do, huh? March in here and demand change? You think that that's going to scare me?" His lips curled into a taunting grin, but Marcus could see the unease flickering in his eyes. "It's not just about me," Marcus shouted back, his voice full of conviction. "It's about every family that has been silenced, every child who has grown up afraid. We will stand here until we are heard." He took a step forward, feeling the embers of defiance flicker to life around him. The stares of his neighbors felt like an unbreakable chain, pulling him forward, demanding that he lead. Yet, underneath, he could feel something raw and vulnerable clawing at his heart, a fear of the unknown, of what might come next. Suddenly, someone shouted from the back, "Take a stand, Marcus. We're with you." Their voices climbed higher, wrapping around him, promising unity, promising strength. Let us show them that we won't back down. He roared, galvanizing their confidence. The thrumming urgency in the crowd rose like a tidal wave, each chant building upon the last, creating a symphony of solidarity. But Marcus's thoughts danced dangerously close to that nagging doubt. Was he leading them into a moment of victory or a disaster? The very air felt electric, charged with the potential of change or something far more chaotic. In the heated moment, he caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. Mia stood there, wide-eyed and trusting, innocence radiating from her small frame. But that trust surged with a powerful demand, his promise to protect her future. "Are you ready?" he asked the crowd, voice flickering with urgency. In that heartbeat, their response was not just a sound, but a commitment, a heartbeat echoing his own, louder than fear, stronger than doubt. No retreat, no surrender, they cried, drowning out everything but their hope for change. But as their voices crescendoed, a small group of law enforcement officers stepped forward, a mere crinkle of uniforms threatening to waterfall disruption into their collective resolve. Marcus could feel the adrenaline racing through him. What were they prepared for? The moment of reckoning was almost upon them. Would he lead them to an inevitable clash? Or could this night mark the beginning of something transformative? No turning back now. The tension lingered in the space between breaths as Marcus faced the officers advancing through the sea of onlookers. His heart raced, not just from fear, but from the electrifying pulse of hope thrumming in his veins. He glanced back at Davina and the others, their faces reflecting not only determination, but also the gravity of the moment. "Be ready," he whispered to himself, steeling his resolve. The crowd's fervor was a living entity, and with it, he took a deep breath, channeling their energy into his next movements. He saw Mia, a few faces back, her young eyes wide with both admiration and concern. The weight of her trust pressed on him like a promise he'd made long ago to shield her, to give her a future where fear wouldn't dictate her dreams. "Stay together," he shouted, his voice slicing through the chaos. The officers halted, confusion washing over their ranks, as if questioning the resolve of a united community that dared to stand up. "Let us show them what we're made of," someone yelled from the front, and the crowd responded with explosive energy. "Stand tall. We are here." The moment felt surreal. Light flickered against the uniforms, shadows danced across faces, and for a brief second, Marcus could see a shift. Fear began to lend way to something powerful, courage. But with the shift came a sharper focus from Stevens, who stood a few paces back, his expression morphing from arrogance to a hint of concern. "What are you going to do, Marcus? You think this might make right?" Stevens challenged, stepping forward, seeking to pierce the unity that had formed. He could sense the crackle of fear within some of his supporters. They had every reason to be afraid. But courage whispered gently, reminding him that transformation often stems from uncomfortable moments. "Fear has held us back for too long," Marcus found himself saying. "But we are more than our fears. We are parents, children, friends. We are a community, and together, we are unbreakable." As if scripted, the noise surged again, rallying. "Unbreakable. Unbreakable." The chants intensified, emboldening their fight. He could feel the momentum building, each heart in the crowd matching the beat faster. But as chaos loomed on the horizon, Marcus pressed forward, refusing to falter. The officers remained tense, hands hovering near their equipment. The atmosphere thickened, pregnant with anticipation. Would they pull those nightsticks? Would the clash that Marcus dreaded erupt with the finality of thunder? A voice pierced through, an unexpected sound of reason. "Stevens." It was Tamika, one of his longtime residents, stepping forward. With passionate grace, she spoke. "You know this isn't what we want. You must understand this is about humanity, not defiance." Stevens hesitated, the slightest flicker of doubt washing across his face. Marcus seized the moment. "It's time for you to listen to us," he declared, his voice steady. The community shifted collectively, a directed force of nature, and for once, it felt like control lay within their grasp. He turned his gaze back to Mia, her small thumb pressed nervously against her lip, but her eyes were strong. They needed a breakthrough, not a breakdown. "Together, we can make this town rise above our past," he said, his heart echoing each word. "Let us make a change." In that charged moment, One officer stepped forward, a flicker of hesitation betraying his role. The crowd quieted into an anxious breath, eyes darting between the officer and Marcus, awaiting confirmation of their path. What would happen next? Would they listen, or would reactive power enforce itself upon them? The air thrummed with uncertainty, and Marcus felt the pulse of possibility, the weight of change heavy in his chest. And just as the officer opened his mouth, the night's silence cracked with the sound of a single voice. The voice cut through the tension, sharp and clear. "Stop." It was low at first, but as the crowd turned, the man who'd spoken took a step forward, determination swirling around him like a thick fog. He was tall with broad shoulders and a familiar face. Marcus's heart sank momentarily as he recognized Chief Judge Darrell Cole, a figure both respected and feared in their community. "Judge Cole," Marcus breathed, a mix of disbelief and relief rushing over him. The crowd murmured, unsure how to respond to the sudden appearance of a man who held authority over justice in their small town. They had been rallying for change, and here was a leader not in uniform but draped in the power of the judiciary. What did this mean? "Let us not have this escalate any further," Judge Cole said, his voice calm but firm. "There's a simmering pot here, and we don't need the heat turned up anymore." He slowly raised his hands, palms open, as if to signal peace. "Sir, we are tired of being silenced," Marcus shouted back, his voice cutting through the uncertainty that hung in the air. "We want to be heard. We want respect." The judge nodded, the weight of Marcus's words hanging in the spaces between them. "I understand," he replied, "but the way to be heard is through dialogue, not more confrontation." He turned to the officers, his eyes narrowing. "And I came here tonight to remind everyone of our responsibilities." The officers shifted uncomfortably at the sight of him, their hesitation evident. Marcus sensed the chance on the horizon, a tide beginning to turn. "Then let us talk," someone from the crowd shouted, a voice that once silenced in fear, now rising with conviction. "We're ready for change." "Yeah, we won't back down," another voice echoed. The energy was palpable, rolling through the swaying throng. Judge Cole seemed to struggle with a mix of emotions, his jaw clenched as he surveyed both the crowd and the officers. "You all deserve to be heard, but this can't turn violent. We have to set a precedent." He looked back at Marcus, deeply. "These conversations don't happen when people are angry." His tone softened. "We need to reach common ground." Marcus felt the pulse of hope start to beat stronger, but he knew nothing would change overnight. The fear was still there, lurking. He glanced back to Mia, where she stood amongst the masses, her small fists clenched as she watched her father with wide, trusting eyes. "And how do we know you'll listen to us, Judge?" Marcus couldn't help but press, feeling the energy of the crowd behind him, pushing him forward. "Words are just words unless they turn into action." "Fair enough," Cole replied with a nod. "Let us organize a town meeting. An open forum, where all voices can be heard. I will be there, and I promise to push for accountability." The crowd erupted, immediate shouts of agreement filling the air like ripples in water. Each call forged a connection, a gentle reminder that unity was forming, even in something so fragile. But beneath the surface, Marcus felt the tension tighten around them, sensing the anger still brewing in several officers' faces. He knew they wouldn't back down so easily. "Promise is a powerful word," one of the officers muttered to himself. But an overwhelming noise drowned him out. "Together, we are unbreakable." Suddenly, the possibility of change flickered just out of reach. Every call for unity pushed the boundaries, but Marcus understood that the true test was yet to come. "Will you stand up with us tomorrow?" he shouted, raising his fist in the air. A mix of cheers and hesitant silence answered him, but he could sense the fear start to shift into something different, an alliance building, forged from their shared dreams. And as the crowd shouted louder, a realization settled in Marcus's chest. Change was coming, but it carried risks, and sometimes, those risks could turn deadly. As everyone else rallied behind him, he felt a wave of determination, but also an unsettling fear of what lay ahead. Would they truly turn the tide, or would the darkness come creeping back? The question loomed, heavy with expectation, urging him to confront what mattered most. Did they have the strength to face both their fears and their leaders? As if the night knew his turmoil, a muffled shout broke through the cheers, cutting a path to the heart of uncertainty. "Don't forget about us, Marcus." The crowd began to pulse with energy, their voices creating a symphony of desperation and hope. Marcus felt the weight of every gaze on him, urging him to lead, to fight. He glanced at Mia, her eyes reflecting both innocence and a fierce determination, and it fueled him. Tomorrow, then, he shouted again, louder this time. We will gather, and we will make them listen. Applause erupted, hands clapping and fists pumping. But just as the cheers crescendoed, a harsh voice broke through the joy like a rock splintering glass. Yeah? And what are you going to do if they ignore you? An officer barked from the sidelines, his arms crossed defiantly. Throw a tantrum? These meetings change nothing. The crowd quieted momentarily. Marcus felt a pit form in his stomach. This was the wall they had to break, through a hard barrier built on years of deafness to their pleas. Change isn't easy. Marcus shouted back, his voice steadying, trying to draw strength from the thrumming crowd. It takes courage, and it takes unity. We're stepping forward, together. But the officer didn't relent. You really think they care? You think Judge Cole can protect you? You're out of your mind. His laughter was bitter, echoing in the now silent night. Marcus' heart raced. Anger coiled inside him like a snake. Maybe fear is all you have left. He replied, maybe the fear of what we can create together is what keeps you on the other side. That elicited a murmur of appreciation from the crowd. They were ready for more than just words now, they wanted action. The tension buzzed like a live wire, and Marcus could feel it pressing against his chest. Judge Cole stepped forward again, sensing the fragile threads of unity beginning to unravel. Let us not lose sight of why we're here. I'm making this promise, he proclaimed, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. I will bring the community into the discussions. All voices will be a part of the solution. Words judge. Marcus interjected, not backing down. We need more than just promises. We need transparent actions and real changes in policy. Then let us hold him accountable. A voice cried from the back, stirred up again. It was a woman's voice, fierce and strong, igniting the crowd anew. A wave of agreement surged through the masses, and Marcus felt a rush. This was their moment. This was when they could forge their path forward, one chiseling through years of neglect and fear. But he also knew the stakes were rising. As murmurs of approval washed over him. The officers stood still, some smirking, others looking on with narrowed eyes. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this unity, this hope, was delicate. Tomorrow's meeting is just a step, he shouted, trying to channel the growing wave. We need to come back bigger and louder, not just for ourselves, but for those who couldn't be here tonight, for everyone who has suffered in silence. And just as the crowd began rallying again, a sudden crash broke through a scuffle to the left. Hey, back off! A shout rose in the thick air, but it was drowned by the volume of collective breaths. Turning to see what was happening, Marcus' blood ran cold. One officer jerked away from the crowd, and before anyone could react, he shoved a man to the ground. The fallout of chaotic moments sent shockwaves throughout the gathering. Fear morphed into adrenaline, and eyes darted everywhere. Stop! Judge Cole's voice bellowed. But the officer was already stepping closer to the man now on the ground, pulling him up sharply by his collar. Enough! Marcus shouted, stepping forward on instinct. Bumping against that hard reality, he was met with fury and determination. The crowd gasped, anticipation thickening the air. Would they witness the flip of turmoil into something else? Would this be the moment that shifted everything? Marcus stood his ground, heart pounding in his chest, feeling an inner conflict surge. Will they provoke the storm? He thought, a chill running down his spine as he faced the impending chaos. The officer's grip tightened, and time slowed, every breath sharp with the taste of uncertainty. This was no longer just about words or meetings, it was about standing at the very edge of change, where even the slightest spark could ignite something far greater. Marcus! Mia's voice called out, a desperate tug from the crowd. And as he stood there, heart racing, he realized that tomorrow wasn't just a chance for dialogue. It was a moment where all could descend into deeper darkness. What would happen when roles flipped, and fear was met with courage? The night waited with bated breath. Just as the tension peaked, something unexpected happened. The air crackled with anticipation, and Marcus braced himself for the worst. The officer, his jaw set in grim determination, suddenly paused, as if realizing the enormity of the crowd around him. The whispers surged, a collective heartbeat echoing through the night, each person holding their breath. "Stand down, Officer Miller." Judge Cole's voice boomed again, deep and commanding. It sliced through the thrumming tension, causing the officer's grip to falter slightly. Miller turned, frustration etched on his face. "You think that'll work, Judge? You think they care about your rules?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd, each voice a thread in the fabric of unity they were erecting. Marcus felt the weight of his heart, a desperate beat pushing him to act. He had to show them that their voices mattered more than the officer's anger. "Judge, this isn't about rules. This is about lives," Marcus shouted, the words erupting from his chest. There was a fierceness to his voice, a fire igniting something within every listener. "This is our moment to demand change." The crowd echoed his sentiment, faces lighting up with fervor. They were ready to stand firm, prepared to fight for each other. A woman near the front raised her fist, her voice ringing out clear. "We want T back down." Not now. But there was still a risk. One spark, and everything could combust. Mia pushed through the bodies, desperation painted on her face as she reached Marcus' side. "Be careful, Marcus." He losing control. He felt the sweat bead on his forehead, and it became hard to breathe. But fear was not an option anymore. Courage surged through him, pushing him forward. "We're not afraid of you." He called out to Miller. "What are you afraid of?" The officer's eyes blazed with fury, the challenge pushing him closer to the edge. But something shifted in the tension, a glimmer of doubt seeped through the officer's actions. For a brief moment, he looked uncertain, like a cornered animal trying to choose between flight and fight. "Do it," Marcus murmured under his breath. "We're ready." He could just hear the collective intake of breath from around him. Then, in a shocking twist, Judge Cole stepped into the fray. "You put that man down, Miller." His voice rang out like a trumpet blast, invoking authority. He took a step closer, unwavering. "Do you really want to start this with an entire community watching?" Miller hesitated, glancing back at the gathering. For a fleeting second, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. It was as if he had realized the depth of what could go wrong in this moment. And then it happened. The man on the ground, overwhelmed but still gripping his dignity, spoke up. "I'm not your enemy. We all just want to be heard." His voice, strong yet weary, echoed through the crowd. That plea cut through the night, silencing the chaos, binding every individual present in solidarity. Marcus felt a swell of emotion crash over him. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone who dared to hope for change. Together, he shouted, "We stand unbreakable." The crowd surged, a living wave of strength, rallying around the vulnerable moment. If they could stand firm now, did they hold the power to enact lasting change? Miller's grip finally slackened, and the man fell freely to the ground. Hope threaded through the air like a whisper, but could it survive against the tension that still lingered? As Marcus scanned the crowd, he could see determination mixed with trepidation in every face. They were all teetering on the edge, minds racing with every possibility. Just how far were they willing to go to demand their freedom? And the question hung heavy in the air. Would courage tame the chaos, or would it escalate into a storm none could contain? The moment stretched, a heart-stopping silence enveloping the gathering like a thick fog. Marcus could feel the weight of every gaze, every heartbeat synchronized in a delicate dance. The man who had been on the ground stood slowly, dusting off his jeans as he looked around, bewildered yet fierce. The energy shifted as murmurs became palpable, rising and falling like waves lapping against the shore. Hope and fear mingled in the air, electrifying the atmosphere. Marcus's heart raced. He could sense the boiling emotions, the frustration, but also the yearning for change that coursed through every person in that crowd. Together, someone called from the back, the voice full of life and defiance. The call rippled out, and Marcus felt himself drawn to it like magnets snapping together. "We stand together. No more silence." He nodded, feeling the warmth of solidarity. People began to step forward, arms linking, creating a chain of unity, defiance painted across their determined faces. But Miller's uncertainty morphed into anger. His fists clenched tightly at his sides, his frustration bubbling just below the surface. "You're nothing without laws," he shouted, his voice strained. The crowd faltered for just a moment, absorbing his aggression like a storm cloud hovering ominously overhead. Marcus stepped closer, feeling the pulse of the crowd behind him, an unyielding force. "We are everything. We're human." The desperation in his voice rang clear. He wasn't just speaking to Miller, but to every soul there. Just then, a lone figure stepped out from the crowd, an elderly man with a cane, his face lined with years of struggle and wisdom. "You don't understand your power, son," he said, his voice steady yet soft. "Change doesn't come from anger. It comes from standing together, from listening." A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. The old man's words sowed the seeds of calm in the storm, and suddenly, the emotion shifted once more. Could they truly rally behind understanding instead of anger? Miller hesitated, gazing at the old man, disbelief resting with doubt in his eyes. The crowd began to chant softly, "We just want to be heard, we just want to be heard." The repetition created a chord of desperation, binding their hearts and voices together louder than before. Mark's eyes darted to Mia, who stood at the edge of the cluster, her expression a mixture of fear and faith. He could see the flicker of hope starting to build again, even in the face of uncertainty. And just as anger threatened to break free, Officer Miller stepped back, backing into the group of cops behind him. "You better believe I'll be back." He spat, his eyes blazing. The wave of defiance didn't drown beneath his words. Instead, it grew stronger. "Let him come," shouted a young woman, her blonde hair gleaming under the streetlights. "We're not going anywhere." Marcus felt the thunder of agreement rolling through the crowd. This wasn't just a battle for the moment. It was a battle for everything the crowd had endured. The air was thick with determination. The tides had turned. But as the crowd found their voices, Marcus saw a darker figure lurking in the shadows, watching intently. A chill ran down his spine. Who were they, and what did they want? Would they support the cause, or would they come crashing into their moment tainted by chaos? The intricate dance of fear and hope continued as the crowd held their ground, ready for what was to come. "What is next?" Marcus whispered to himself, the weight of the impending confrontation pressing heavy. Yet, just as he turned to Mia for reassurance, the crowd reacted to the figure lurking at the edge, and the night took an unexpected turn. There was a sudden shift in the air, as if the night itself held its breath. The figure stepped into the weak halo of the streetlights, revealing a woman in an authoritative uniform. She tightened her grip on a clipboard, her expression a swirl of confusion and resolve. "All right, everybody, stand down," she called out, her voice sharp as glass. The crowd hesitated, the weight of her command lingering like smoke. Marcus felt the tension spike, the solidarity among the crowd wavering. He took a step forward, eyes locked on the officer. "Why are you here? What do you want?" "My name is Officer Jana Reyes," she replied, scanning the crowd. "I'm here to facilitate, not to antagonize." There was something in her tone, an undercurrent of urgency that made Marcus raise an eyebrow. "Please, let us talk this out. There's a better way." Murmurs rose again, uncertainty spreading like ripples in a pond. Some wanted to listen, others clung to their anger. Marcus searched the faces around him, looking for allies in this moment of potential distraction. "What do you know about us?" A voice called from the back, sharp and accusatory. It belonged to a young man who had been watching Officer Reyes with narrowed eyes. "You don't get to come here and tell us how to feel." "I'm not telling you how to feel," she shot back, fatigue lacing her words. "But we can't let this escalate. The last thing we need is more violence." As she spoke, Marcus saw Miller inch forward again, anger resurrecting in his posture. "Don't trust her. She's just another badge in a dying system," he shouted, his fists tightening once more. "Enough," Reyes snapped, her gaze focusing squarely on Miller. "Your threats don't intimidate me. You think history hasn't shown us the cost of anger?" Her voice had grown louder, carried by conviction. There was silence. The words had struck a nerve within the crowd, dust settling on their emotions. Marcus's heart raced. Could Officer Reyes bridge this chasm between anger and understanding? "Listen," she continued, softer now. "I know not everything is right. I also know it's not too late to change it. But we can't do it divided." Her eyes glanced across the crowd, resting for a moment on Marcus, then drifting over to Mia, who stood on her toes to see over the heads before her. He watched as the crowd began to shift, their breathing still rapid but tension loosening. Reyes wasn't just speaking for the system. She was humanizing it. But before hope could fully take root, from the shadows, an unexpected shout erupted. "You don't have the right to speak for us." A group emerged from the darkness, faces hidden low beneath hooded jackets, every word a challenge and a threat. "Here we go," Marcus thought, dread filling his chest. He felt a collective tremor of fear ripple through the crowd as they began to inch back, uncertainty creeping in like winter chill. "Stay strong," someone called out, but another voice questioned, "How many are there? Are they even on our side?" Reyes moved to stand in front of Marcus, a barrier of courage. "Everyone, please. We can work through this together." But the shadows only seemed to deepen, the stakes rising higher. The air grew heavier, a looming storm waiting to burst. Both sides of the confrontation readied for a potential clash as the first movement surged from the emerging figures. And just then, as Marcus prepared himself to step in if things went awry, he noticed something strange about their leader, someone familiar. Wait, is that? The night hung on the brink, each heartbeat echoing within the growing tension. Who was it? What happened next could ignite a firestorm or spark the light of unity. The figures emerged from the shadows, the familiar face striking a chord in Marcus's memory. It was Jeremy, a former high school friend turned activist, someone who had fiery ideals but was known to lose himself in the heat of anger. The crowd tensed, whispers swirling as his presence sent electric jolts through the atmosphere. "Jeremy?" Marcus called, the disbelief heavy in his voice. "What are you doing here?" "Fighting for what's right," Jeremy shouted, stepping into the dim light, flanked by several supporters. "This is our moment, not some discussion over coffee with the cops." The tension thickened as Reyes stood firm in front of Marcus, visibly uneasy. "We're not here to create chaos," she reminded him, but the uncertainty in her voice mirrored that of the crowd. "They had come for change, not threats." "Then let us take it. Don't let them pacify you." Jeremy's voice boomed, each word striking like a match to dry tinder. "Stop," Marcus pleads, slipping through the crowd to stand between them. "You're missing the point. We can't let anger dictate our actions." His heart raced, the urgency of the moment pounding beneath his skin. Everyone needed to feel heard, to understand the gravity of what was unfolding. The group at the forefront hesitated, caught off guard by Marcus's authority. "You think they're your allies?" Jeremy scoffed. "You think that they will listen?" "No one is going to listen if we don't try." Marcus shot back, the flare of desperation igniting in his voice. "Unity doesn't emerge from power plays, it grows from understanding." The crowd out front began to breathe more deeply, the initial tension loosening as some nodded in agreement. "We want change, not more conflict," someone shouted, and that familiar chant rose up once more. "We are unbreakable." Before chaos could spiral, Judge Cole stepped closer, putting a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "They're scared, just like you." His voice lowered into something softer, more urgent. "Let us guide them to a conversation instead of a battle." "Don't you see?" came Jeremy's voice, edged with frustration. "Words mean nothing. We need action. Then we can take action together." Marcus pressed, his heart pounding for solidarity. "But we have to be willing to engage, not scream. We need to build a bridge back to trust, not burn it." The tension snapped, but behind Marcus surged something unexpected. The crowd began shifting again, eyes darting between him and Jeremy. Voices overlapping, each person bringing their feelings to the table, encapsulated both urgency and a desire for peace. Officer Reyes turned toward Judge Cole, her expression raw. "We can organize dialogues. It's a start, but you must promise to hold each other accountable." A murmur of agreement rippled through the assemblage. Maybe, just maybe, the tension could forge something meaningful. "Then let us talk," Marcus declared, reclaiming focus. "Let us coordinate a town meeting that doesn't end in violence. It's time for our voices to rise together." But Jeremy's frustration remained palpable. "You think they'll actually listen?" "They'll just placate you." Before he could finish his thought, Mia stepped through the crowd, her small frame small but radiant. "Please stop fighting," she called, her voice quaking yet filled with unwavering courage. "I just want everyone to be friends." Silence enveloped the gathering. One by one, all eyes shifted towards Mia, her innocence cutting through the clamor like a spotlight. Suddenly, all the anger surrounding them, the years of hurt and heated arguments, felt lighter. Marcus knelt beside her, heart swelling. You're right, sweetie. He turned back to everyone, pointing to her fiercely. If we ever want a future without darkness, we must find common ground. For her. In that moment of connection, the rift began to soften. The hardened expressions around them eased, and the shadows gave way to fragile smiles searching for hope. I won't let fear hold me anymore, Jeremy said quietly, stepping back toward the collective. Perhaps we can share our stories, and they listen. With renewed energy pulsing through the crowd, Marcus felt a powerful tide of unity begin to flow. Let us band together for change. We will gather again, share our truths, and build the town we deserve. As cheers erupted around them, any remaining doubts faded into the night. They were standing on that precipice of transformation where fear collided with possibility. Tomorrow held no guarantees, but together they would strive to create a brighter future, one voice stronger than the last. As Marcus gazed out at his community, he found strength. This is just the beginning, he shouted. This is the moment we stand together for justice. And with that proclamation, the tide of hope surged, ready to flood the streets once more, transforming the night, igniting the spirit of unity, and rekindling a flame that could never be extinguished. They were more than just voices trying to be heard. They were a living anthem of change, a family rising hand in hand as they moved toward tomorrow. Marcus knew one truth. Together, they would not only resist the darkness, they would illuminate the way forward. Now, as the night shifted into dawn, each heartbeat promised to grow even louder, echoing with courage and resolve. And as the stars faded into the morning light, the world shifted, ready to embrace their powerful, unbreakable bond. Marcus smiled, tears of joy threatening to spill as he looked at Mia, her innocent face gleaming with possibility. We did this, he told her, and we will keep doing it. Then, so they could remember this moment, he raised his phone high, capturing not just an image but the embodiment of hope. Let us share this moment, he said to the crowd, and let everyone know what we can achieve together. And with a deep breath, he called into the ether. This is the moment, your moment. Let us inspire change together. As the horizon blushed with morning light, a chorus of voices reaffirmed their commitment to this cause, their hearts open and unyielding. So, what can you do to join this journey? You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss these stories of unity and transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so these powerful voices are heard far and wide. Comment your reactions, your feelings about this incredible conclusion. And don't wait. Not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of resilience and connection. Together we're a part of this monumental shift. Let us propel change forward, one click at a time.